versus Robert Durst. Okay. Oh, it was better when you told me, right?
Our jurors and alternates all are present. Alternate number 1 by stipulation, you'll be taking seat number 2. Thank you. Mr. Durst is present. Jurors and alternates are present. We have Mr. Chesnov and Mr. DeGuerin for the defendant, Mr. Lewin, Mr. Bailey, Mr. Miata, and Mr. Henderson.
Your Honor, I might have to step out for a moment.
Thank you, and you'll be excused at that time. Just, I understand. I'll be chatting with you a little bit later about schedule. There's one little wrinkle that I need to work out on our schedule going forward, but just for planning purposes. And the defendant is seated. Good morning. You may resume your...
Your Honor, I was going to ask too, Mr. DeGuerin pointed out, I think he's probably right and we missed it. Are we leaving early this Thursday? Is that still at 2:30?
No. That was for a juror who was able to change that appointment.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Your Honor. May I begin?
Yes.
Mr. Durst, I want you to listen to my question very carefully. I do not want you to relate anything that your attorney said to you or you said to your attorney. I just want to ask you, over the weekend, were you able to review any of the materials involving Prudence Farrow and the statements that she has given?
Yes.
So if you recall, last week, you said that your relationship with Prudence, let me ask you, when did you start dating her?
I think we started dating in the fall, maybe October of 1981.
And Mr. Durst, isn't it true that your relationship started well before that date?
Not to my knowledge.
RD 448, 12-12-10, page 382, line 9 to page 383, line 8.
This will be 307, 307A, Your Honor.
Thank you.
So this is in 1980 when you have a relationship with Prudence at that point.
Need that screen on, please.
Can we begin that clip at the beginning, Your Honor?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Uh-oh. Is that going to switch when we start?
Hold on, give it a second.
Trial or Netflix? Is anybody Netflix?
Good.
So this is in 1980 when you have a relationship with Prudence at that point. Kathy ends up living or spending time in a different apartment on 86th Street.
Yeah, well, when she got the lawyers involved, the lawyers said that we should do some kind of an agreement. They didn't know what to call it. So we did an agreement where by then we had the apartment on Riverside Drive, and she wanted quote unquote her space. We still had the apartment in 86.
You can stop it now.
So you go there.
Mr. Durst, what I wanted was the beginning of that clip where Mr. Jarecki said to you, so this is 1980 when you have a relationship with Prudence at that point, and you respond, yeah. So my question is how can both your statements be true?
Both statements can be true because in 1980s when we met.
Mr. Durst, isn't it true, though, that well before November of '81, you were already arranging and had already gotten Prudence an apartment, correct?
When did I get Prudence, Steve? I don't really remember when I got Prudence an apartment in a Durst building.
Mr. Durst, isn't it true that you started a relationship with Prudence? That relationship was sexual, correct?
When we started the relationship, it was absolutely not sexual.
When did it become sexual, Mr. Durst?
I think I already answered that question in October of 1981.
But isn't it true, Mr. Durst, that well before that time, months earlier, Prudence Farrow had ended your relationship and that you were not even seeing her anywhere near the time for months and months before Kathy disappeared?
No.
Isn't it true you made a call from a payphone to Prudence Farrow a few days before Kathy disappeared?
I don't recall the telephone call that Prudence said I made.
Would you agree that Prudence made clear to you that she would not date you as long as you were married to Kathy?
Prudence never said any such thing.
Would you agree that during your conversation with Prudence that she made clear to you that she was going to, quote, cut you off because she did not want to date you while you were married or not separated from Kathy?
Prudence never said anything even vaguely like that to me.
Would you agree, Mr. Durst, in reviewing the statements from Prudence Farrow that that is what she has stated?
I would agree in reviewing.
Yes. All right. Sustained.
Your Honor, it's not for the truth of the matter asserted. It is, I don't want to...
We'll go sidebar.
Sure. I think we did have an answer.
Yes, the objection will be overruled, but only because the question is, the answer would not prove whether or not it was true, but that the statement was made. That's the only point of this. So you may continue with that understanding.
And Mr. Durst, just to be clear, I understand you're denying the truth of that statement. I just want to make sure you've had a chance to review the statements by Prudence, and you would agree that is what she said. Is that correct?
No, I do not agree that that is what she said. What I do remember her saying during the 2 interviews that I was given, she gave an interview to a detective in 2000 and a much longer interview to you in 2015. And what I remember from those interviews is Prudence changed her mind repeatedly about all the things you are talking about.
So, Mr. Durst, my question is, I'm not asking you about whether or not it's truthful, whether or not you believe it. I'm simply asking you, would you agree that Prudence Farrow said that during this call that she told you that she would not date you as long as you were married to Kathy?
Clarification
Clarification?
about the question, is he asking about what she said in the interview or what she said in the call to you?
No.
Make sure you're clear,
Okay.
be very precise
Sure.
with your question. Thank you, Mr. DeGuerin.
Mr. Durst, so let me be clear on this. You're denying that a call ever took place, correct?
Could you please be more specific?
Sure.
The two of us spoke on the telephone numerous times, and I don't know what specific call you are talking about.
Sure, let me start over. So, you agree that Prudence Farrow has said that a few days before Kathy disappeared, you called her. My understanding is you are denying that took place. I'm merely asking you, you agree that is what Prudence Farrow has said, correct?
Clarification.
I am dealing.
Overall.
Clarification.
Objection clarification?
Yes, when? Is he talking about on a phone
Okay.
call with Mr. Durst, or is he talking about an interview?
I've been very...
I think you're clear enough.
Uh,
Okay, thank you, Mr. DeGuerin. If that's an objection, it's overruled.
The objection is ambiguity of the question.
Vagueness, overruled.
Do you understand, Mr. Durst?
Prudence Farrow never said anything to me about not wanting to see me as long as I was married to Kathy. In her interview, Prudence Farrow changed her mind repeatedly about what our relationship was.
Did Prudence Farrow ever say to you that she was going to cut you off because she did not want to date you because you were married and not separated from Kathy?
No,
Did Prudence Farrow ever respond to you? Strike that. Did you ever say to Prudence Farrow, with respect to this issue, that you were afraid that she was going to reject you and never agree to see you again because you were still married to your wife?
no,
I just want to ask you, did you have a call with Prudence Farrow about anything within the immediate days preceding or after Kathy disappeared, either way?
Prudence Farrow and I spoke on the telephone in the days and weeks before Kathy disappeared and in the days and weeks after Kathy disappeared.
Did you ever place a call from a payphone to Prudence Farrow within, let's say, a couple of days before Kathy disappeared to a couple of days after Kathy disappeared?
I don't remember.
RD 342, 315-15, page 60, lines 2 through 4. Before you play that, Mr. Henderson, Mr. Durst, did you ever say to Prudence Farrow in the days immediately preceding Kathy's disappearance, you won't be hearing from me for a while?
No,
RD 342, please, as previously cited, if that can be played.
That's what people's 291.
291.
the screen I'm looking at is blank.
We didn't start. You didn't start yet, did you?
No.
It'll start in a second.
that call, you told her that apparently it was for payphone, and you said you won't be hearing from me for a while. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
So, Mr. Durst, you were asked during the interview that you had with me in 2015, you were asked about that call from a payphone, and that you had said you won't be hearing for a while. Do you remember that? And you answered, yeah, I remember that. Would you agree that is completely inconsistent with the testimony you just gave?
I don't. Way back then, payphones were used a lot.
Okay, Mr. Durst, whether payphones were used a lot or not, I asked you specifically about telling her you won't be hearing from me for a while. And instead of you saying, I didn't say that, I don't remember that, that's not true, that's a lie, that's made up, you responded, quote, yeah, I remember that. Can you explain your answer?
I was wrong. I don't remember that.
And let me ask you, does this mean you were wrong, or does this go back to your attempt to get, quote, a plea bargain from me?
I don't see the connection between getting a plea bargain with you in 2015 and whatever it is you're trying to say I did or said in 1982.
Mr. Durst, you're the one who has discussed a plea bargain. I'm trying to understand, you're now saying that you don't remember making this statement. This statement, in essence, you were accused of calling up Prudence Farrow and saying, you won't be hearing from me for a while. Do you agree that that statement coming from you a couple of days before Kathy disappeared, do you agree that that would be a damaging statement for you to have made?
No.
Overruled.
Well, Mr. Durst, since you're the one who agreed that you made the statement you won't be hearing from me for a while, can you explain what that meant?
I don't remember making any such statement.
Well, you remembered making the statement in 2015, correct?
2015.
2015, I asked you about the statement, and you remembered it making it then. You're now saying, I have no memory of having made that statement.
I don't remember making the statement, and I don't remember discussing it in 2015.
Well, you just heard the statement, correct? You heard it.
I saw the transcript, yes.
No, you just heard it. That was your voice saying, yeah, I remember that, correct?
I thought that was something I said to Andrew.
No, Mr. Durst, this is a statement that you made to me in the 2015 New Orleans interview. Do you understand that?
Don't remember making the statement to you. I never said anything like that to Prudence Farrow.
So here's my question. If you made the statement, Mr. Durst, would you agree that that would appear to be a very damaging statement for you to have made?
No.
Would you agree, Mr. Durst, that the statement implies that you're going to be busy involved in something that's going to prevent you from talking to Prudence Farrow, and that this is right before your wife disappears?
I have no idea what the statement implies.
Would you agree, Mr. Durst, that given the other testimony you've given in this case about your memory, that it is a bit intriguing to understand how you don't remember this, yet you remember things that would seem to have much less importance?
Actually, form the question argument.
Sustain.
All right, let's talk about Susan Berman. You agree that Susan Berman was your closest friend, correct?
I thought you were going to talk about Prudence Farrow.
Well, I'm now going to move on to Susan Berman, since you're telling me you can't remember statements you made. So I want to ask you about Susan Berman. Do you agree she was your closest friend?
Sometimes she was, yes.
Well, when you say sometimes, haven't you previously said that other than 2 years of your life, when Kathy was your best friend, that Susan was your best friend?
I have said that.
And have you also said that Susan was a very loyal person?
Yes.
And would you agree that in many ways, Susan was more like family to you than a friend?
No. I never got along with my family.
Right.
Susan was a better friend than anyone in my family.
Right, I meant not so much your personal situation, but just that the way you looked at her, she was of such importance in your life. She was the best friend you ever had, correct?
I guess.
Would you describe Susan as a highly intelligent person?
No. Intelligent, but not highly intelligent.
And what would be the distinction for you between intelligent and highly intelligent?
Susan was naive about a lot of things.
Who is somebody that you would say is highly intelligent?
I think Dick DeGuerin is highly intelligent.
Do you feel that you yourself are highly intelligent?
I do not consider myself to be highly intelligent.
All right, let me ask you, was Susan a loyal person?
Yes, you just asked me that.
No, I didn't, but okay. Would you agree that she was loyal to the extreme?
No.
Would you agree that Susan would have done almost anything for you?
No.
RD 327, 31515, page 50, line 27, to page 51, line 3.
I think it was 291. 291. 291, 291.
The people closest to Susan, everybody says, even Sarah, that if in that situation, maybe a little bit because of her dad, the whole, mafia thing, that they think that she would have done anything for you.
Damn close.
Mr. Durst, can you explain the answer that you gave there, saying that she would have
Damn
done?
close is something Andrew asked me to say.
So your position is that this is simply something that Andrew made you say, is that correct?
That Andrew advised me to say yes.
Oh, Mr. Durst, this wasn't an interview with Andrew Jarecki. This is you and I talking in 2015. How about a different explanation?
I repeated what I had previously said to Andrew.
So you're saying you remembered that years before you had given this explanation to Andrew, and then you decided I will repeat it verbatim because Andrew told me to say it several years ago. I'll repeat it to the prosecutor and the homicide detectives. Is that your testimony?
That's what I remember, yes.
Does that sound, when you listen to it, does that sound like a reasonable explanation for what happened?
I don't know what you mean, reasonable explanation for what happened. What happened?
I believe it's vague. In other words, what happened? In other words,
Okay.
the statement he made,
Okay.
or what it refers
Understood.
to.
What I'm asking you, Mr. Durst, is do you believe that the explanation you just gave is a reasonable explanation to explain why it is that you gave this explanation to this question to me and detectives in 2015?
Overruled.
Because I remembered what Andrew had asked me to say in 2010, and I repeated it.
Okay, let's talk about Susan calling the dean. You were previously asked during the March 15, 2015 interview if you thought that Susan would have made the call to the dean if you had asked her to. Do you recall being asked that question?
No,
If I were to ask you today, do you think if you would have asked her, Susan would have called the dean for you pretending to be Kathy, what would your answer be?
I don't know. Maybe she would have. But Susan, as we just agreed, was intelligent. And Susan was aware of current events. And Susan would have been aware that making some kind of phony alibi for someone who might be charged with murder would make her possibly some kind of an accessory or something like that. And I don't think the question of whether or not Susan would have made the call if I requested her to. I think the real question is, could Susan Berman have gotten away with pretending to be an Albert Einstein student? Any Albert Einstein student.
So, Mr. Durst, but your answer then is you just said, I don't know, she might have made the call, correct?
I certainly never said she might have made the call. You asked me if I thought she would have made the call.
And you said maybe she would have done it, correct?
I said maybe she would have called at my request, and maybe she would not have called at my request.
But what the question I'm asking you, Mr. Durst, is you're not sitting here telling this jury, hey, listen, Susan never would have made that call if I requested her to do it. Your answer is maybe she would have, maybe she wouldn't have. I don't know. Correct?
Correct.
Would you agree that despite her loyalty, that Susan definitely had a bit of a big mouth?
I don't see that her loyalty had anything to do with whether or not she always made up stories. But she did always make up stories.
Motion to strike is non-responsive.
Stricken.
Mr. Durst, what I'm asking you is, this isn't a question about whether she made up stories. I'm merely asking you, and let me make it easy, could Susan have a big mouth?
Susan had a big mouth. Your terminology is big mouth, not mine.
Okay, what would your terminology be?
She told stories.
So would you agree, Mr. Durst, that if you had a choice and you were going to pick somebody that you wanted to confess a crime to, that Susan, because of her big mouth, would not have been the ideal choice? Would you agree?
This is another one of your hypotheticals. If I wanted to commit a crime, I would have had to have committed a crime.
So, Mr. Durst, my question is, you heard, for instance, and you referred to it, I think you referred to it in your testimony with Mr. DeGuerin, that even Steve Silverman said, and he testified to this, that Susan Berman was the last person you would want to confess a murder to. Do you agree with that statement by Mr. Silverman?
would Susan be the last person that I would want to confess a murder to? I guess you would be the last person I would want to confess a murder to.
Fair. Would you agree, though, since I wasn't your best friend, even now I don't think I am, would you agree that Susan Berman, as your best friend, even though she was someone you cared about, and even though she was somebody that was very loyal, that if you had told her a secret, such as confessing to murder, that you would have been very concerned about her ability to keep that quiet?
Anything I said to Susan would be something that Susan might talk about.
And you would have been aware of that from the time you would have told her, correct? In other words, this isn't an observation that you're coming up with in 2000. You would have known this back in 1982 as well, correct?
Yes, my memory of Susan now is pretty much the same as in 1982.
So would you agree, Mr. Durst, that if you assume that Susan had a secret that could get you into trouble, that you would be concerned that eventually that secret was going to come out, am I correct?
Susan was not good at keeping secrets.
By the way, Mr. Balian has asked me to ask you the following question. If I'm the last person you would want to confess to, etc., why were you trying to confess to me to make a plea deal?
I was trying to make a plea deal.
Okay. Would you agree that Susan could be an extremely manipulative person?
No. Well, maybe. I mean, there are some people who she could manipulate. Like she could manipulate Nick Chavin.
Mr. Durst, knowing Susan as you do, let's assume, I want you to assume for a moment that Susan had a secret involving a very wealthy friend of hers, a secret that was very detrimental to that wealthy friend. Was Susan the kind of person who would overtly blackmail such a friend, or was she the kind of person who might kind of just hint that she needed things?
I think you're asking a whole bunch of questions.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I think you are asking me more than one question.
Okay, let me try to break it down for you then. Would you agree that given the kind of person Susan was, that if she had a wealthy friend and she had a damaging secret about that wealthy friend, that she would not be likely to overtly blackmail that person? Would you agree?
I don't see Susan blackmailing anybody.
Well, so what I'm asking you, though, is if Susan needed money, and she has a friend who's got money, and she has a damaging secret on that friend, would it more be like Susan to overtly blackmail that friend, or would she be more likely to just kind of hint that maybe she needed money?
I don't think Susan would do anything like that.
I want to play you a clip by Steven Silverman, which is a part of the evidence in this case, and I want you to tell me if you agree with it. This is going to be SS 021.
This
as part of 77A.
Thank you.
In your experience, is Susan
The kind of person who, in your experience, would overtly blackmail a friend? Overtly.
No, Susan was too clever to do anything overtly.
And can you tell me what you mean by that?
She would find other ways. She would hint that she had something on you. She pulled that on me.
Tell me what you mean. Stop it. Mr. Durst, do you agree with what Mr. Silverman said, or do you disagree with it?
Well, Susan treated her friends differently. The way she treated Steve Silverman is different than the way she treated me. I have no idea how she treated Steve Silverman.
So that wasn't the question. Mr. Silverman said that Susan was too clever to overtly blackmail a friend, that she would find other ways, she would hint. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree with that?
I agree that that is what Mr. Silverman is saying. I do not agree that that is the way Susan would have treated me.
Would you agree that that is the way Susan, you would have expected, would have treated most other people other than yourself?
I have no idea. I know she had Nick shaven wrapped around her little finger. Susan asked me for money repeatedly, and I always more or less complied with her request. She never blackmailed me, and she never did whatever Steve Silverman is saying she did. When Susan wanted money from me, she would tell me how much she wanted, and she would usually tell me what she needed it for.
Mr. Durst, I know you have said that you did not give Susan money to keep her quiet. Is that correct?
Correct.
Let me ask you something. I want you to assume for a moment that Susan had damaging evidence that you had murdered your wife. If that were the case, you agree, you would have certainly given her money whenever she asked for it, correct?
on the question.
Overruled.
Sorry, man.
Overruled.
If Susan, this is one of these hypotheticals. I did not murder my wife. Susan would not have had evidence that I murdered my wife. And if Susan wanted money from me, she would ask me to give her money.
You would agree, Mr. Durst, that if Susan Berman had damaging information about you, that you would have been in a position where, whether you wanted to give her money or not, you would have had to, correct?
No.
All right. I want to talk about the week of Kathy's disappearance. Do you agree
We're
that...
finished with Prudence, and we're finished with Susan, and now we're going to go to Kathy.
No, what we're doing now is we're going to the information that you provided to Detective Struck. If you can, Mr. Durst, rather than trying to figure out where I'm going, if you can just answer my questions, that would be appreciated. Will you agree to do that?
I will agree to try to answer your questions, even if they seem extremely deceptive.
Okay. Do you agree that you gave Detective Struck an incredibly detailed timeline of what you did the week that Kathy disappeared?
Correct.
And you actually wrote a timeline out at the time that you reported Kathy missing, correct?
I don't think so.
Well, you recall the document has been referred to as the itinerary, and it lists what you did that week. Do you recall that document?
I do recall the document, and I think it was written probably years after Kathy disappeared at the request of my lawyer.
Well, Mr. Durst, are you aware that the itinerary was recovered in the weeks and maybe months, but within that time period after Kathy disappeared?
I must be thinking of a different document.
So, would you agree, Mr. Durst, that in your direct examination testimony, that you added and changed numerous facts about your activities that week from the ones that you had given to Detective Struck?
Object, vagueness.
What was the objection?
Vagueness.
Overruled.
Your Honor, if I could request, and I know it's probably me, but I'm having a hard time when Mr. DeGuerin objects. I don't know whether he's just objecting quietly, but if the court could ask him to really shout out his objection.
I've been told that by the court reporter, Your Honor. This thing causes it to go straight to my ears, and I don't know how loud I'm talking or how soft. I apologize.
It's probably me. It's probably my fault.
I'll forgive you to yell it if you yell it out. So they can hear. I hear you fine. If they have trouble, then you can yell it.
Thank you, Your Honor. As an example, in your direct examination testimony, you have mentioned repeated days the week that Kathy disappeared where you were looking at houses for you and Kathy. You recall doing that, correct, in your direct examination testimony?
I don't know what the question is.
Okay, during your direct examination testimony, you testified that many days the week that Kathy disappeared, you were out looking in various areas for a house for you and Kathy. Do you recall testifying to that?
I remember testifying about that.
And would you also agree that in terms of you going out and having looked at houses for you and Kathy, that you never mentioned that to Detective Struck, to Andrew Jarecki, to myself in New Orleans, that the first time you ever mentioned that was during your testimony in this courtroom? Would you agree?
Well, I don't remember if I mentioned that to Detective Stroke or to Andrew Jarecki or to you.
Well, I want you to assume for a moment, Mr. Durst, that you didn't mention it to any of the three of us. Not to Detective Struck, not to Jarecki, not to me and detectives in New Orleans. I want you to assume that. Can you explain why it would be that you would have not mentioned that activity until 39 years later when you were sitting in a courtroom testifying before this jury?
So I'm assuming all of these things.
Yes.
It's hard to assume things that I don't remember at all. If I assume, well, I know I talked about it. With both my matrimonial lawyer, Robert Sawyer, and with Nick Scapetta, and probably with Ed Wright.
Mr. Durst, can you explain, though, Detective Struck testified at length. He went through everything that you had told him, which included a detailed timeline that you gave him particularly during your February 8th, 1982 interview. Do you recall that testimony?
No.
Do you recall, Mr. Durst, having reviewed the discovery that shows in intricate detail the information you provided to Detective Strzok about your activities the week after Kathy disappeared? Do you recall that?
I went over with Detective Strzok what I did in the 5 days after Kathy disappeared.
So I want you to assume for a moment, Mr. Durst, that you did not mention to Detective Strzok, to Jarecki, to myself and detectives in 2015 anything about ever having gone out on multiple days that week looking for a house for you and Kathy. I want you to assume that. And once you assume that, I'm going to ask you, can you explain then why it was that you would not have given the detective, Strzok, and Jarecki and myself this information?
Objection, improper, hypothetical question based on a false premise.
Overruled.
I do not agree that I did not tell Michael Strzok that I was looking at houses on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday after I last saw Kathy.
Okay, Mr. Durst, I want you to listen to my question again. So my question tells you you have to assume, you don't have a choice, you have to assume for the purposes of my question that you did not relate that information. If in fact you related that information, Mr. Durst, your attorneys will have a chance on redirect to get up here. But for my question, you need to assume you did not relate that information. What I'm asking you is, can you explain, if you did not relate that information, why that would have been?
So you want me to assume something that is not correct?
No, Mr. Durst. Having the jury has heard the testimony of Detective Strzok, he has testified at length and gone through his records of what you told him. That information is not in the testimony, and it's not in the records. So I'm asking you to assume that to be true and to explain why you wouldn't have told him that.
I'm supposed to assume that I did not tell Mike Strzok what I very specifically remember telling Mike Strzok.
Yes, Mr. Durst, you're to assume, for the purposes of this question, that you did not tell Detective Strzok that you were looking at houses that week for you and Kathy. That is what you are supposed to assume. And once you assume that, I'm going to ask you if, in fact, Mr. Durst, there's no indication that you did not say that to Detective Strzok, would you agree that you would not be able to give an explanation as to why you wouldn't have provided that information? Would you agree?
Speculation.
Your Honor, it's not for proof, that's what the evidence is.
I know. You can take the hypothetical out of it and say, why didn't you tell the Detective Strzok?
All right.
And he'll
Okay.
deny it, but go
Well,
ahead.
Mr. Durst, the evidence that has come before this jury when Detective Strzok testified is there's no evidence whatsoever that you ever mentioned anything about shopping for houses with Kathy. I'm sorry, looking at houses for you and Kathy. So the question would be, Mr. Durst, can you explain then how it is that you are now coming up with this detail when you never mentioned it prior to testifying in this case 39 years later?
Objection. Well, it doesn't correctly state the record. Inconsistent with the record.
Overruled.
I remember telling Mike Strzok in detail that on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of February 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, that I had looked at houses in New Canaan, Connecticut, and in Greenwich, Connecticut.
You also, when you were interviewed by Andrew Jarecki, he went through in agonizing detail, literally had the notebooks in front of you, and went through to tell you that, in fact, strike that. When you were interviewed by Andrew Jarecki, he went through in detail the prior statements that you had given to Detective Strzok, including literally showing you the notebooks and going through his reports, correct?
I don't remember Andrew giving me a notebook. I do remember telling Andrew what I did February 2nd, 3rd, and 4th after Kathy disappeared.
I want you to assume again that you did not tell Andrew Jarecki anything about looking at houses for your wife. If in fact you did not tell Mr. Jarecki that, would you be able to explain why?
Improper hypothetical and calls for speculation.
Overruled.
I remember telling Andrew that on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, February 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 1981, that I had looked at houses in Connecticut.
Mr. Durst, you agree that you and your attorneys have access to Andrew Jarecki's full interviews, correct?
I guess I don't know.
Well, Mr. Durst, you've been furnished the interviews that I've been playing. You have copies of the same stuff I do, correct?
I think these are questions for my lawyers.
Your Honor, will the court take judicial notice that the defense has been provided with the discovery of those interviews?
Once you get a stipulation to that.
All right. Mr. DeGuerin?
You could do that at a different time. You could do that at a different time.
Okay. Mr. Durst, what did you do on February 1st, 1982?
I took our dog, Igor, to the veterinarian. I went to Ridgefield, Connecticut.
But I want to stop you. I'm going to take them one at a time. You took Igor to the kennel. What time did you take him there?
You said the vet.
The vet, excuse me. The vet and the kennel are the same place, correct, Mr. Durst?
No, the vet and the kennel were different physical acts.
Oh, okay. You took him to the vet at what time Monday morning?
The dog had an appointment at either 8 or 8:30 Monday morning.
And that was to be assessed for the issue with his leg, is that correct?
Correct.
And that involved, I would assume, x-rays and being examined to figure out what they were going to have to do with him, is that correct?
They examined the dog and concluded that there was an infection in his hind rear leg.
And do you recall, Mr. Durst, approximately how long you were at the veterinarian?
Just a few minutes All I did was
So,
take Igor in and leave him there.
so if your appointment was at 8 or 8:30, Mr. Durst, and you've already testified that it's an hour's drive to Einstein from the veterinarian, is that correct?
Correct.
So, Mr. Durst, even if you had dropped the dog off at 8 o'clock and the plan was to take Kathy to her pediatric rotation, she was going to be late no matter what happened. Is that correct?
I had no idea what Kathy's rotation was. Kathy never said that there was a problem.
So it's your testimony, Mr. Durst, that, strike that. You're aware now that Kathy Durst was supposed to report by 9 o'clock the next morning to the first day of her rotation, correct?
I am aware now that Kathy Durst was starting a pediatric rotation on February 1st. I never had any idea exactly what time Kathy was supposed to report.
Well, Mr. Durst, you heard Dr. Bach testify, and you actually saw her calendar, that she was supposed to be Kathy reporting at 9 o'clock. You heard that testimony, correct?
I heard the testimony. I don't recall him saying what time Kathy was supposed to do whatever she was supposed to do.
So I want you to assume, Mr. Durst, that Dr. Bach testified that Kathy was supposed to be at the rotation for her first day by 9 o'clock. I want you to assume that. Would you agree that if your testimony is true, the best case scenario, no matter what, was that she was going to be late for that rotation if she had gone with you to drop Igor off at the vet?
Well, this is one of your easiest hypotheticals. I agree that if the vet appointment was at 8 o'clock, Kathy could easily have gotten to any place near Albert Einstein by 9 o'clock.
Well, Mr. Durst, the problem for you is, A, you said that the appointment was either at 8 or at 8:30, and you've already said twice now that it takes an hour to get there. So wouldn't you agree that given the testimony you have already stated, you've already given, that she's going to get there after 9 o'clock?
Like 9:03 maybe.
Well, Mr. Durst, are you aware, from having heard the testimony, strike that. That's if the appointment is at 8 o'clock, correct? If it's at 8:30, she's going to be even later. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did you go to the Caldor store in Ridgefield, Connecticut before you went into the city?
No.
Have you ever, Mr. Durst, to Detective Struck, to Andrew Jarecki, to myself and detectives in New Orleans, on your direct examination, have you ever admitted to going and making a purchase at the Caldor store in Ridgefield, Connecticut on February 1st?
don't recall going to Caldor's on February 1st.
And Mr. Durst, if you had gone to Caldor, given the detailed recitation you've given of your activities, you would have remembered it when you spoke to Detective Struck on February 5th and February 8th, 1982, correct?
I don't recall going to Caldor's on February 1st.
Please put up stipulation 20.
People's 250.
What's the exhibit number?
250?
Tip 20 is equals 250.
Do you see that stipulation, Mr. Durst?
It's too small.
Okay, hold on a minute. Let me read it to you. Defendant Robert Durst used his Chemical Bank Visa card to make a purchase at the Caldor store located in Ridgefield, Connecticut on February 1st, 1982. Do you see that?
I hear what you said. It's on the screen.
Do you understand, Mr. Durst? This is a stipulation. You have agreed that this is a fact. Do you understand that? Do you understand that?
I agree it's a stipulation.
You forgot about that one, didn't you? You didn't remember it.
I've still forgotten about it. I don't remember going to Caldor's on February 1st.
Well, Mr. Durst, since you have stipulated that you used a Chemical Bank Visa card, is it your testimony that as you sit here right now, you have no memory of going to a store the day after your wife disappeared?
Correct.
You agree you have never mentioned this fact to anybody in any of the interviews that I have previously referred to. Is that correct?
I doubt I mentioned it to anybody since I don't remember doing it.
Would you agree, Mr. Durst, that Caldor would have had items that you could have used to clean up a crime scene, dismember your wife, get rid of the body parts? Would you agree Caldor would have had those items?
Objection, speculation.
There's been testimony. Would you agree?
I would agree that Caldor's sells cleaning products. They also sell clothes. They also sell refrigerators. They also sell televisions.
Mr. Durst, isn't it true that right after you killed Morris, you went to a hardware store to buy materials to get rid of the body, correct?
I did not intentionally kill Morris.
Motion to strike is non-responsive.
Stricken.
Listen to my question, Mr. Durst. Isn't it true that after Morris was killed in a fight over your gun, allegedly, that you went to a hardware store to buy supplies, to dismember him and clean up the crime scene.
That is true.
Would you agree, Mr. Durst, that your trip to Caldor, for a reasonable person looking at it, could be characterized as consistent with that same motivation?
Argumentative, form of question.
Sustained.
Would you agree, Mr. Durst, that going to Caldor's immediately after Kathy's disappearance, if you had killed her, would have allowed you the opportunity to buy supplies to clean up the crime scene and dismember and get rid of her body?
Objection, form of question, argumentative.
Overruled.
I would agree that Caldor's sells cleaning supplies.
Mr. Durst, would you also agree that given your incredible memory, that it would be fair for somebody listening to your testimony to say, wait a minute, how did he forget going to that store when he listed all the other details? Would that be fair or unfair?
Objection, speculation, and argumentative.
Sustained.
Mr. Durst, in listening to your explanation regarding the fact that you forgot that you ever went to Caldor, would you agree that somebody listening to that it would be fair to question the veracity of that statement?
Objection, same question, speculation, and argumentative.
Just a moment. Agree that somebody listening to it question the veracity. Overruled.
We're waiting for your answer, Mr. Durst.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
The question is badly put. I would agree that I went to Caldor's. I would not agree that I remember going to Caldor's.
Listen to my question. That's not the question I asked. Would you agree, Mr. Durst, that a jury listening to your testimony, that it would be fair for them to question your veracity in your claim that you do not remember such a trip?
Objection, form of question, argumentative.
I'll sustain.
Well, then I'm going to go back. Can the court reporter ask him the question, which was not sustained?
I'm changing my ruling. No, it was the same question, but I'm now that I think about it.
Okay. Mr. Durst, can you explain, since you stipulated to go into Caldor, can you explain why it is, given your memory, you don't remember it at all?
I guess I don't remember going to Caldor's because I don't, what I bought at Caldor's was not something that I would remember.
Mr. Durst, let's assume you had gone to Caldor's and bought a bunch of things to dispose of your wife's body and clean up the crime scene. Is that something you would admit to?
Oh, no, that's sort of a
Objection.
hypothetical.
Improper hypothetical, assumes facts not
The
inevitable.
facts are
It's
evidence.
argumentative.
Overruled. Overruled.
I did not kill my wife. I did not dispose of her body parts.
Motion to strike is
I
not
don't
responsive.
remember what I bought at Caldor's. And I don't think the fact that I don't remember going to Caldor's had anything to do with my telling Mike Stroke that I looked at houses on February 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Only asking to strike the first two statements, which were non-responsive. The rest were responsive.
Stricken.
Mr. Durst, you're aware that Caldor's had a hardware department, correct?
Correct.
So let's say you wanted to buy a bow saw, you wanted to buy bags, you wanted to buy other things to dismember a corpse. You could have picked that stuff up at Caldor's, correct?
Objection, hypothetical, not based on facts and evidence,
Overruled.
and argumentative.
Overruled. Do you agree?
Let's say I wanted to buy a telephone.
Mr. Durst, did you understand my question?
Let's say I wanted to buy a pair of socks. Let's say I wanted to buy a refrigerator.
Did you have a need that day, Mr. Durst, for a pair of socks or a refrigerator?
Not that I remember.
So, listen to my question. Do you agree, Mr. Durst, that if you had wanted to get tools, items, to dismember somebody, you could have bought them at Caldor's, correct?
I could have.
What was that?
Correct.
All right, let's talk about, you also said that on February,
I said objection, form of the question.
Yes, overruled.
you also said, Mr. Durst, that on that same day, February 1st, that you went to a closing having to do with your work at the Durst organization, actually Van Dorn Realty. Is that correct?
Correct.
You heard Douglas's testimony. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you were asked about this on direct examination by Mr. DeGuerin. Do you recall what you said about this closing, this transaction?
I assume I told Mr. DeGuerin the same thing I told Mike Stroke.
Let's play RD 720, 81121, please.
This is testimony from August 11th. Mark it as 308, 308A.
Thank you. And then we'll take a break.
And I went to this legal office where I met with my brother and our partners, and there were several lawyers there, and this was at the seller's lawyer's office. And we bought a building with the address of 311 West 43rd Street.
What was that purchase for?
It was a loft building that we converted to be an office building.
All right, how long did that transaction take?
I must have been there for about 3 hours. I'm guessing from 11 to 2.
May I ask one question with respect to this? Mr. Durst, is it your testimony that the closing actually happened that day?
I think they had to delay it for some reason or other.
Was that reason, Mr. Durst, because you didn't show up and weren't there as your brother Douglas testified?
I don't recall Douglas testifying that I didn't show up.
Thank you, Rem.
Ladies and gentlemen, do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. 1045, please. Counsel standing. Yes, you have something for my attention?
Thanks. Your Honor, I'm sitting here listening to Mr. Lewin ask the same question over and over again, unsupported by any evidence that's in the record, that anything was purchased by Mr. Durst in that store that's remotely connected to the idea of disposing the body. All Mr. Lewin, and then asking Mr. Durst to speculate on whether or not, if he had bought the things that there's no proof he bought, could that have been used to dispose of a body? Now, Your Honor, it's okay. Is it a hardware store? Yes. Do they sell this? Yes. But to ask Mr. Durst to tell the jury Mr. Lewin's argument, it's a hypothetical that is not based on any facts that are in evidence. He can't name one product that was purchased at the store, unless I'm wrong, and he'll correct me. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But to listen to this over and over again, Your Honor, to a little control here. We're going to be here until October. If he's allowed to ask questions over and over that are not based on the evidence in the case.
Mr. Lewin? Oh, you done? Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Lewin?
So, number one, they stipulated to this purchase. They stipulated.
But then he went to the store.
Okay, thank you. That there was a purchase, yes.
That there was a purchase.
Yeah.
The purchase becomes very suspicious because Mr. Durst, with all of his great memory and all of his recitations of what happened, has never mentioned it. We had testimony, maybe Mr. Chesnoff was not paying attention, but we had testimony from Detective Becerra indicating what they sold at that store, etc. Given Mr. Durst's own admissions of what he did in Galveston after Morris Black, it is not only appropriate and relevant for me to be asking these questions, which are not repetitive at all, but I would be derelict in my responsibilities as a prosecutor if I did not cover them.
Okay.
Yes.
So the key thing is, Detective Becerra testified that it's a hardware store. Okay. He did not testify he bought anything at all that's connected to disposing of a body. It's okay to ask, is it a hardware store? It's okay to ask, do they sell this there, if you remember, Mr. Durst? It is not okay to then ask him, is that the kind of stuff that you could have used to dispose of your wife, even though he's testified multiple times he didn't kill her and he didn't dispose of it. All he's doing is an improper argument in his questions to put in the mind of the juror this theory. He can do that in his argument, Your Honor. But and the idea that he doesn't repeat his questions, I'll leave that to you, Your Honor.
So the defendant has testified that he didn't kill his wife and he did not dispose of her body. This is a circumstantial evidence case which depends upon facts and inferences. The people may rely upon facts and inferences from those facts in order to ask questions of the defendant. It may feel very uncomfortable to hear these questions, but they are reasonable inferences from the facts that are presented, and Mr. Durst can be confronted. Now, this may well sound like argument in the sense that it supports an argument, but the people may again, Mr. Durst testified he did not kill his wife. He can be confronted with every assertion that is supported by any evidence or inference, and that means every aspect of the killing and the aftermath are fair game once he takes the witness stand and testifies such as he does. It may be that, I mean, it's a particularly effective means of cross-examination, I would think, and you may not be familiar with it or comfortable with it. It is uncomfortable to listen to it, but it is still not objectionable. It's not an argument itself.
Your Honor,
Your Honor, there is no evidence of what was purchased
Mr. DeGuerin, the body is missing. It's a fair inference that there is a reason why the body is missing. If the body is missing right after the person disappears and the person went to a hardware store and this same person killed a different individual and went to a hardware store and bought materials and disposed of the body but was caught doing it, the comparison is there for a reason. 1101 permits this because it is probative.
Your Honor, except in Galveston, they found blood. They found evidence. The police were through the house in South Salem. They did not find a single indicia, Your Honor, of dismemberment, of disposing of a body. And couple it with the fact that there was evidence, most respectfully, Your Honor, that she was seen in New York City afterwards. The court kept telling us that it was
Hearsay?
No, Your Honor. No, Your Honor. It's why Detective Struck did what he did, which they've attacked the whole time. So it was not offered for the truth. It was offered for Detective Struck's state of mind and Mr. Durst. And the other day, Mr. Lewin asked him, why could you possibly think this, Mr. Durst? And out of respect to this court's ruling, Mr. Durst did not say, because I'd been told by the detective she'd been seen in New York.
Because, again, and I don't think this was clear before, it's always been relevant. It's not a matter of opening the door. It is a hearsay problem. Mr. Durst may not testify to hearsay. The idea of opening the door is a relevance concept. It is not a hearsay concept, and that is the reason it is excluded then. That is the reason it is excluded now. I appreciate your making your argument at length now, but I want you to understand that Mr. Lewin can confront Mr. Durst with the evidence that's been presented, grisly as it is, and he can be confronted with the inferences that may be drawn from that evidence, grisly as that is and horrible as the implications are. It is present. It can't. That's immutable. He can deny it, but these questions are powerful questions, and he's subject to answering them. So objections overruled.
Thank you for listening.